Leftists are trolling on social media, the New York Times, after they released an opinion piece calling for a unity cabinet. So let's talk about this. So now, of course, with the expectation that Joe Biden is very likely to be the eventual Democratic nominee, an opinion writer of the New York Times is already imagining what he would like to see from a Biden cabinet. And shocker, it's full of Republicans and corporate CEOs. So now the writer for this is Thomas Friedman. And he calls this, again, a national unity cabinet. And so he writes that Biden, since, they're assuming he's going to be the nominee, should not be running to be president of the 48%, as Donald Trump is. Quote, he needs to show he's running to be a majority president, a unity president, but not just unity for unity's sake, but unity of purpose based on a shared set of values for rebuilding America. So now what does that group of people look like? Well, I'm going to give you some names. So there's his suggestion, right? So for vice president, Gretchen Whitmer. So now Gretchen Whitmer, she's a milquetoast Democrat from Michigan. She's my governor. And she ran against Abdul El-Sayed. Now, Abdul El-Sayed is progressive, and he believes in Medicare for all. Gretchen Whitmer literally gets paid by Blue Cross Blue Shield. And so, great. Not the kind of person that you would want in a pandemic or to rebuild from a pandemic in a sort of unity thing, right? Because here's the thing. Republicans and Democrats are pretty unified on one thing. Their hatred of Medicare for all. And I say establishment Democrats when I say Democrats. Democratic voters, however, love Medicare for all. In fact, recent polls have support for Medicare for all increasing by a large margin. You know why? It's because so many people are losing their employer-sponsored healthcare. It's estimated that over 3.5 million people have lost their employer-sponsored healthcare because of coronavirus. So, but Gretchen Whitmer, right? That's the unity. There's more. Former Health and Human Services Secretary Donna Shalala or Governor Gina Raimondo would also be, of course, possible picks for VP. For Treasury Secretary, Michael Bloomberg. Hey, you remember Bloomberg, the guy who screwed over his staff? Where he promised, don't worry, I'm going to pay you staffers who worked on my campaign all the way up until November, and then decided, no, I'm actually not. I was lying. Now that Bernie Sanders is basically done, right? His opinion, of course, there's still a lot of voting left to go, including the primary on April 7th. Okay, well, Bloomberg says, my job's done here. My tax cuts are secure. I'm just going to get out of the race, and I'm going to dump $18 million into the DNC. Well, that Michael Bloomberg would be Treasury Secretary. Health and Human Services, Bill Gates. Bill Gates. So now, Elizabeth Warren also has a role in this. Now, Thomas Friedman picks her as the Secretary of Oversight for the trillions of dollars in emergency coronavirus spending. And he says it's to make sure that it's done fairly and productively. So that's a temporary position at best. Okay? So now there's more. Attorney General Merrick Garland. That's an interesting choice, considering his very, very centrist and very establishment. So I guess not a surprise choice at all. Homeland Security Secretary Andrew Cuomo. So the guy who's basically effed up New York, right? Botched their coronavirus response. That would be Homeland Security Secretary. Secretary of State, Mitt Romney. So there's your actual Republican. Wow. Okay. There's more. Let's see. There's Defense Secretary Michelle Flournoy, but they have a progressive on there, and they didn't leave progressives completely out. Ro Khanna would be the labor secretary. So look, I'm actually not against that pick. All right, that's like basically the only pick in this that is decent. And that's sort of the problem, right? So progressives get basically one decent pick, labor secretary. And then the rest is left to corporate CEOs and part of members of the 1% and basically the neoliberal establishment. And that's it. All right. There's more. There would be a new cabinet post created, the Secretary of National Infrastructure Rebuild, and it would be filled with the Walmart CEO, Doug McMillon. You also have for Commerce Secretary, former American Express credit card CEO, Ken Chenault. OMB Director would be Governor Mike DeWine of Ohio. Education Secretary would be Lauren Powell-Jobs. And for UN Ambassador, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So now, look, that's, I mean, UN Ambassador, that's not really in her skill set. She's actually got a degree in economics. Why don't you put her in something related to that? Why don't you put her as part of the OMB, right? Office of Management and Budget. I mean, that would be a better fit for her, right? A little bit better than UN ambassador. It's a token. That's all it is. It's a token. Congratulations. Thanks for playing, right? So now go be UN ambassador. It's ridiculous. There's more. HUD Secretary, Ford Foundation Chief Darren Walker. Interior Secretary, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham of New Mexico. Energy Secretary would be a Republican, Andy Karsner, and the EPA Administrator, Al Gore. Oh, okay then. Look, there's a ridiculous list, right? Ro Khanna, yes, is a good progressive. He and AOC are obviously good progressives. But the rest are wealthy CEOs, neoliberals, and Republicans. Again, Mitt Romney. All right. Look, Bloomberg for Treasury. That's the thing that sticks out the most. Bloomberg? Really? What in the world? But anyway, so now I know a lot of the centrist opinion on this would be, well, look, we're throwing you a bone, right? What are you complaining about? Well, there's a lot of good reasons to complain. For one, the assumption that Republicans are good faith actors. They are not. Even during coronavirus, Republicans mainly wanted to shovel money to the rich and ignore poor people. So now, what makes you think that their priorities would change post-coronavirus when we've got to rebuild the country and get people back? It doesn't make any sense. No, Republicans have one constituency, the wealthy. And that's it. And so, look, it's not a good idea to put bad faith actors in the government. It's just not. But anyway, so now, obviously, there were some responses to this. And I want to read a couple because they're fun. Summer tweets out, we tried that with Obama when he picked GOP Senator Judd Gregg for his cabinet. The GOP leadership immediately told him to say no, and he obeyed. The GOP hasn't changed. Republicans, they're still going to Republican even after a crisis and during a crisis. For example, the Trump administration, they still want to cut Medicare and Medicaid. Even when they're talking about, well, we should extend health care to everybody with coronavirus if you're uninsured. But to be fair, Andrew Cuomo also wants to cut Medicaid in New York, despite New York for being a massive hotspot for coronavirus. There's more responses here. Stephen H. says, I stopped at Mike Bloomberg, Treasury Secretary. Florida Guy says, why is it only that Democrats are expected to be bipartisan? It's a good question. Stephen Tignor says, someone still thinks it's 1996. Now, in case you notice, it's not 1996. The Republicans have become even more right-wing. And again, most of them are not good faith actors. I think we need to utterly crush the Republican Party. But apparently before we do that, we actually have to have a party that stands for something on the left. We do not have a leftist party. We have a center We have a massively right-wing party, and we have a center-right party in the Democratic Party. So they don't represent us, unfortunately. Now, Corporate Citizen says, saying the quiet part out loud, that Biden would be an absentee president and the policy decisions would be made by a series of unelected cabinet secretaries with rivaling agendas to secure the best exit opportunities for themselves. And Giles Corey correctly points out, this is a unity cabinet between centrist corporate interests and other centrist corporate interests. Absolutely. This is what the great thinkers over at the New York Times are putting out. And let's be honest, with the exception of progressives being part of it, it's more than likely to happen. I'm not saying that these are going to be Biden's picks. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that Biden will be picking a corporate cabinet. It'll be just like what happened with Obama. Obama got a list from his donors, the banks, on who to nominate to his cabinet or who to appoint. And then that's what he did. Almost without exception. He picked everybody on the donors list. Well, at least Biden will be exactly like Obama, literally going back to Obama and doing just that. And at the end of the day, we will end up having no fundamental change because that's exactly what Biden has also promised the donors. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a patreon.com/TYTNation set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.